Lesson 3: The Ascendance of the Chinese Mestizos in the Philippines. Contents: Number 1. Dynasty and the early Chinese in the Philippines. Number 2. 3. Economics development. Number 3. Statuses 4 categories. Number 4. Tribute or tax. Number 5. Rights of Indios, Chinese Mestizos and Chinese. Number 6. Generalization. Long before 1850, the Chinese had been significantly involved in the economic and social affairs of the Philippines. Direct contact of China and the Philippines existed from at least the Song period 960 to 1279. The arrival of the early Chinese to the Philippines through barter system and socio-cultural exchange. A barter system is an ancient method of exchange. This system has been in use for centuries, long before money was invented. People began exchanging services and goods in exchange for other services and goods. Barter is a form of trading in which goods and services are exchanged directly for one another without the use of money as an intermediary. A farmer, for example, might trade a bushel of wheat for a pair of shoes from a shoemaker. During the Ming Dynasty, era 1368 to 1644, Chinese intensified its relations to the Filipinos through junk trading system. The junk trading system emerged, which gave several points in the Philippines regular commercial and cultural contacts with the Chinese. In 1560s, new opportunities for the Chinese came through the Manila Galleon trade from Manila to Mexico. The so-called Manila Galleon, now the China or now the Acapulco. The Manila-Acapulco Galleon trade, which connected the Philippines and Mexico, began in 1565 and ended on September 14, 1815. For over 250 years, Spanish ships traded silvers, spices, cotton, jade, ivory, silk, gold, porcelain, and a plethora of other exotic goods from China to Mexico in exchange for New World silver. Three. Economic development in the early of 17th century. Number 1 is Western economy. Western economics is the name given by Chinese scholars to the economic theories that have emerged and prevailed in developed Western countries with a capitalist market economy. It is a concept with rich connotation and somewhat vague extensions. Many men and women move into Western cities to find new opportunities and new profits, exchanging raw materials such as crops, minerals, and animal skin for manufactured goods, or providing services to outlying communities became the primary economic roles of these urban areas. Capitalism, also called free market economy or free enterprise economy, economic system dominant in the Western world since the breakup of feudalism, in which most means of production are privately owned and production is guided and income distributed largely through the operation of markets. Number 2 is native economy. Indigenous economies refer to traditional and local economic system of indigenous peoples. This system include a variety of land-based small-scale economic activities and practices, as well as sustainable resources management. Indigenous economies are often characterized by a subsistence mode of production. During these early movements, their economy was based on farming and hunting. Then, they slowly abandoned the practice of raising crops and they turned into full-fledged nomads when they moved into territories that became modern day. Number 3 is Chinese economy. Since the introduction of Deng Xiaoping's economic reform, China has what economists called a socialist market economy, one in which a dominant state-owned enterprises sector exists in parallel with market capitalism and private ownership. Contrary to capitalism, socialist market economies produce goods based on usage values with collective ownership shared by the entire country. In socialist economies, governments are charged with redistributing wealth and narrowing the gap between the poor and the rich. The Spaniards controlled and divided the status into 4 categories. First, Spaniards and Spanish Mestizos. Second, Indios or the Malayan inhabitants of the archipelago who are now called Filipinos. Third is Chinese, and lastly, Chinese Mestizos. But before I discuss these 4 categories, I am going to discuss first what is Mestizos. Based on the definition in Merriam-Webster, Mestizos are the person of mixed blood, specifically a person of mixed European and American Indian ancestry. This simply means that Mestizos are those people with mixed or combined blood, especially with white European and an indigenous background. This is some of the pictures that are collected online. Chinese mestizos influenced the character of Rizal, who has also Chinese roots or also a Chinese mestizo. Also, Chinese mestizos contributes to the development of the Philippines as a nation. They played a significant role in the formation of the Filipino middle class. Tribute or tax. Indios, Chinese, and Chinese mestizos were considered tribute-paying classes, but the amount of their tribute payments and the service demanded of them varied. Spaniards and Spanish mestizos were not required to pay taxes depending on their income. More so, a policy that limited the number of Chinese individuals who could reside in the Philippines or restricted their area of settlement was implemented. Going back to the tribute or taxes of Indios Chinese and Chinese mestizos. Number 1. The Chinese mestizos pay double the tribute paid by the Indio. The reason is that they have assumed to have approximately double capacity of the Indio. They engage in agriculture, commerce, or both. This simply means that Chinese mestizos pay double the tribute paid the Indios because Chinese mestizos has the ability to produce more than the Indios like in agriculture and commerce. Number 2, the Chinese paid a much larger tribute than the paid by the Chinese mestizos on the ground that his earning capacity was larger than that of the mestizo. The Chinese was first and last a commercially oriented money maker. What he could be best supply is money. If Chinese mestizos paid a lot more than the Indios, Chinese are the ones who pays a lot more larger than the Chinese mestizos in Indios. It is notable that Chinese earn a lot of money than the two, and Chinese field is to make money, a lot of money. Number 3, the Indio concern were chiefly agricultural supply labor. Indio are those who are the indigenous people of the Philippines. They are also called as indigenta. They are the lowest class or group who occupies the lowest level in highly stratified class society. Now, they are called as a Filipino. Through the history, they have shown time and again that they are capable of heroism and love of nation.
Rights of Indus. Chinese mestizos and Chinese. Rights to move around the land. First, own property. Second, participate in town government. Generalization. The mestizos had most of the same rights as the Indus while the Chinese usually did not. The case of property ownership is not clear. In matter of geographic mobility, the Chinese were usually restricted. The mestizos and the Indus were relatively free to change residence. The Chinese could never participate in local government. The Chinese mestizos individually and corporately could not did participate with the Indus. The Chinese had been intermarrying with inhabitants of the Philippines, resulting in a creolized community of Chinese mestizos under the Spanish colonial regime. So, generalization is a form of abstraction whereby common properties of specific instance are formulated as general concepts or claims. Generalizations posit the existence of the domain or set of elements as well as one or more common characteristics shared by those elements.